to Cafe Con Leche in the morning, or as our initial name is, Be Well Kanima Fitness. I'm Diego Christian Cafe Leche. As you know us, and today we have a fun old topic. Why don't you break down this topic, Leche?
We're going to be talking about healthy summer nutrition, basically some just nutrition overall, kind of planning into the summertime. I think Diego has talked about it before, but basically summertime people tend to, go out and eat.
Guilty!
I think we're all guilty of that. Sun shining, you want to go to a patio, you want to try new food.
Dude, I have that, summer food diets. I go summer here, summer there. It's just going for it. And you put a beer in there, bone apple tea, let me tell you. But because of that action that I caused myself during the summertime, I do happen to put on a few. And I do use the excuse that I'm bulking all the time, even though I am never bulking. I always tell them I am because it just makes you feel better. So for those who are in the same boat as me, who during the summertime, they go out there and they dabble a little bit more than they should into these restaurants, these patios and stuff like that because the sun is out. Well, guess what? Today we're going to try to give you tips, opinions, and things like that of how to manage it or try to make it at least somewhat better if it's super bad. Now, Leche, what are your main strategies when it comes to summer health nutrition?
Well, first of all, neither of us are registered dietitians, so take it with not with a grain of salt, but you can hear us out kind of on things just since I think we've both been involved in kind of like the fitness world, so nutrition kind of comes with that. Usually when we talk about summertime, people are always trying to do the summer shredding or just trying to cut weight so that they look good in the bathing suit or something like that. So usually up to the months leading up to summer, people really go into extreme kind of dieting. It's not really a sustainable thing. The whole thing of bulking and cutting is really something that general population people shouldn't be doing whatsoever. That's for bodybuilding and trying to put on as much muscle mass as possible, then cut as much fat mass as possible. In a lot of times, it's not good for you. At the end of the day, it's not sustainable.
Unless you're using it as an excuse when you're going out and eating and not
exactly. We use it all the time. If I eat, an entire bag of Trader Joe's orange chicken, I eat last night. The next day I'll say I'm bulking.
That's very specific. So did you eat that last night?
I did indeed. Okay. It was delicious.
Good to hear. Now that we're being honest, I did eat McDonald's. But again, I'm bulking.
I'm jealous.
I'm bulking. But yes, it's not really as sustainable when it comes to those things. Because I remember one time I tried the carnivore diet because, I wanted to lose as much weight as possible in a quick span because I had a trip coming up and I wanted to look good. But during that diet, it was hell. I was like, how do people just do this? All I wanted was carbs. All I wanted was pasta, wanted to order pizza and things like that. So I understand the sustainability of extreme dieting where you're bringing up. It is difficult. So when it comes to those things, there is many diets out there. There's the keto diet, paleo diet, the carnivore diet.
Yeah.
There's even things you probably would never hear about. Once my roommate tried this thing called snake juice diet. And well, if you can look that up in your own time, but just know it is absolutely not healthy.
But don't do that one.
There's so many diets out there, but the thing that probably should be taken into consideration is what diet works for you.
Yeah,
that's probably the main thing that we should try to preach out here when it comes to the summer health and nutrition. Because again, we're not registered dietitian, so obviously this is outside their scope, but because we are in the fitness realm, we do have to attack this thing on a daily basis with our clients itself.
It's more like providing advice from things, and clients they come to us since they know that fitness and nutrition they're very much paired together. So you're not really doing one without the other. I think if you're truly trying to reach new goals and have a better feeling body, an overall physique as well. Like Diego mentioned, there's a bunch of different diets out there. There's different methods of dieting, like intermittent fasting that have become very popular recently. And it's not to say that nothing is wrong with those things. It's just very hard to abide by those things all the time. So it more so comes down to, I really think, more of individual preference, finding what works for you, but then also some, just kind of like be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
I know that my orange chicken last night was not good for me. Should I have eaten the entire bag in one sitting? No.
You ate the entire bag in one sitting?
I did.
Okay, I mean, cool. Good for you. You're broken too. That's great.
More impressive rather than concerning, I think, at this point. But yeah, so it's kind of like finding something that works for you. Food's good. Like
It is.
It's part of being human, enjoying food. And if you eat bird food for the rest of your life, I think you're missing out a little bit on life. Especially, you're not an Olympic athlete. You are not, training to do the highest pole jump ever. You're here to live, feel good, feel happy, feel healthy, and that encompasses everything all the way to the mind. So like, food makes you feel good. So
and even with athletes, like you'll see, and with they interview them, like, what do you eat? Some people will indulge, they will. So
oh yeah,
even athletes, every now and then will go and get off that diet they're in to go have good food.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like, well, I don't know. No, we're all having good foods at certain points. So make sure you don't restrict yourself, because mentally it sucks too.
Yeah.
Mentally it sucks. I remember on that carnivore diet, I was exhausted. My body did not feel well. Like, yes, I was looking good. Don't think I was not. But I was not feeling good. So those are two different aspects that you need to realize, that feeling and looking sometimes don't go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So when it comes to dieting, that's one of the things that also we should take into consideration is, how does your body feel? Do you have energy? Are you happy? Are you in a good mood?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're working, it could affect your job. So if I really restrict myself with a tough diet and I'm in a job, say sales, where I have to go speak to people, but I'm in a crappy mood, they're like, "Good morning." Well, is it a good morning? Like, you can't be having that.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that not only does this diet work for you physically, but mentally and emotionally as well.
Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, another thing too. Like, people get into dieting and they kind of go from 0 to 100 very quickly.
Yes.
And all that leads to is, a relapse of just, I can't take it anymore. I'm going to go eat all this food. And then you feel like crap. And then you kind of just keep eating that food, and it goes on. And it's kind of like a revolving cycle where basically you'll build up the courage again to do that full diet and just keep going back and forth. So I think what we're going to kind of talk about today is what I like to believe in. I don't like the word diet at all. I really believe in like lifestyle change and just being conscious of what you're eating and knowing like you're allowed to enjoy yourself last night. Again, shout out to Trader Joe's and their orange chicken, because
shout out to McDonald's
love
and
that
fast service.
Exactly. But we're going to kind of break down like the macronutrients of, which is pretty general, like in the fitness nutrition world, of just like how much you should be having and what are the good versions of those versus like the bad versions of those. Because there are little things that you can like just switch that, that don't taste, they taste good still and they're like good for you. It's not like you just have to, completely throw out everything that or just currently have in your pantry or in your refrigerator. It's stuff that you can just make quick little switches kind of at the grocery store. That can go a long way in the end of it, because it's not like a sprint, it's a marathon. This doesn't just happen overnight of when you just fix your diet, basically.
Never heard anybody sprinting a marathon. I've tried, didn't make it far.
How far?
Probably 5 steps in. And then I was like, oh, immediate regret. And slowed it down.
Myself.
Actually, I quit that marathon in general, walked home after those 5 steps. Yes, but it is a game of millimeters, not inches. So when you say macros, can you break it down for those people who don't know what a macro or macronutrients are?
So the 3 major macronutrients, you'll find them on any nutrition label on the back of any food that you buy at the grocery store, are going to be your carbohydrates, your proteins, and your fats. And we're going to break down all 3 of those. All right, so the first one we're going to go over is carbohydrates. Carbs, when we think of carbs, people think pasta, bread, rice, pizza, anything that's bread.
Apple tea.
Yeah. So the people, I think, tend to overdo it on carbs, and just because they taste good and people can tend to eat a lot of them, but people don't really understand how much they're eating in certain portion sizes. So yeah.
So what I've learned about carbs too with people when it comes to it, there's no middle ground. There's either, oh, I'm not gonna have any because they're gonna make me fat, or they're gonna be like, oh, I'm bulking, I'm gonna have all the carbs in the world.
Mhm.
So it kind of goes into two types of ends of the spectrum where this does not mean in the middle. I've never heard anybody, well, not never heard anybody. Some people actually do realize, understand, but most people I work with, they're really scared of carbs or they really love carbs. I rarely get some views like, oh yeah, my carb intake is absolutely perfect to the dot, to the
Yeah.
T. So I don't think people, when you say how does it help you, they don't understand. Because I take carbs, energy.
Energy usually. So what Diego just kind of explained was like there's two ends of like a spectrum when it comes to carbs. It's like people won't touch them, and then people will overindulge on them or think that they need them to fuel what they're doing. Carbs are good. If anyone tells you carbs are bad, tell them jump in a lake. Basically, that's about it. They're essential for you. Your muscles, they use muscle glycogen. They have muscle glycogen stores. Carbs are what fill those stores. You need that to be able to complete tasks or any sort of exercise that you're going to be doing. Running, lifting, swimming, biking, anything that your body is doing to move, you're using carbs. The carbs are there, they're your fuel source. But that's when people kind of get out of, the thing of basically, oh my God, so I need all of these carbs. I'm going to eat 500 grams of carbs a day.
Unless you're a strong man.
Unless
you're literally
you are
competing in the world's strongest man competitions, I understand why they use that much carbs. But if you're just a couple of chumps like me and Leche over here, I mean,
if you aren't 6'8", deadlifting 800 pounds, there's no reason for you to be eating that many carbs. But I also think it also comes down to kind of a misconception of people don't know that they're eating that much carbs.
Yeah.
Like when you have a bowl of pasta, I don't think people realize that like basically just almost about a portion the size of your fist is about 70 grams of carbs. When it comes to just a normal grain pasta, it's 70 grams of carbs, and that's good for one meal. Like that's all you need. And people have, I don't know, you see at a restaurant, an Italian restaurant, how much pasta you get. You're probably getting upwards of 180 grams of
Olive
carbs.
Garden, I'm going ham on those.
Exactly.
Even though I don't need them all, I'm not gonna like use all that carb energy that I just told from the breadsticks. Eventually, once I cap myself, I will cap myself. I'm not doing it, Brent. I'm not doing it, burn it. So that is absolutely true when it comes to those things. And then, like, one of the things I well, at least I'm a victim of. Well, not a victim. I know what I'm doing, but what people don't understand is like one beer, right? The little one, especially during the summertime, it's going to happen a lot. Someone invited me yesterday. Is like, hey, you want to have one beer? And I had to make the decision because I know how much carb that is, and one beer will not leave the one beer for me. Maybe 2, 3, but that is so many carbs that I probably don't need to do. But that's the thing people don't realize as well. So yeah, you're absolutely right on that. They just don't realize the amount that is in it when it comes to portion sizes.
Yeah, and then if we're speaking about alcohol before we move kind of on to the other two macronutrients, each macronutrient kind of has, calories per gram. So like the calories on the back of that nutrition label are determined by how many macronutrients are within the actual food that you're eating. So like for carbs and proteins, they have 4 calories per gram. So 2 grams of protein is 8 calories, if that makes sense. Fats are a little bit higher, so those are 9 calories per gram. And then what people don't realize is alcohol is technically in there. Alcohol is 7 calories per gram. If you go have 6 beers, you're having carbs and alcohol at the same time. You're having a lot of calories.
Yes.
Empty calories that have no nutritional value whatsoever.
It's not like you're going to use that energy to burn it off immediately. I've never had a beer and be like, you know what? Why are you drinking?
You're using that energy
to go lift.
Yeah, you're using that energy of drinking a beer to then order more carbs later because you're hungry. That's probably it. That's how I work, I guess.
So carbs, right? And then from carbs, we go to proteins.
The proteins, yes. Proteins are probably most important, especially when it comes to any sort of weightlifting, resistance training. I think people actually underestimate that they do get enough protein. I think a lot of people are actually too worried and that I don't eat enough protein. But there's so many things that actually have protein nowadays, like People make protein cookies, like they make protein chips. I think people are actually getting a lot more protein than they actually need to, and then they're kind of cutting short on other macronutrients or basic.
Like here's a little example: peanut butter. People have like, oh yeah, the peanut butter sandwich, but they don't understand like, hey, that peanut butter, I don't know how much you use, but probably had a lot of protein in there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just a quick example of like foods that you probably don't realize how much protein there is in something until you actually read down the labels.
Yeah, and it really always comes down to that of just take a glance at the label. Just take 5 seconds, look at what you got, make sure it's not something that's high calorie, just a lot of carbs or a lot of fats, and just make sure it's a balance. Like the percentages on the back, they're based off of like a 2,000 calorie diet of like how much you should be eating. 2,000 calories, it's an average. Diego and I, you can't really tell, but we're two different sizes.
It's real hard because we're both sitting. I know we look alike. I'm Diego, by the way. Name tag is right there.
Yep, I'm Christian.
So just in case you can't tell, but yes, we're two different sizes, but technically we're eating about the same amount of calories. It's bad on my end. It's not like he's doing. No, that's bad on my end. I'll tell you why. Because you have these things called the BMR, right? So basal metabolic resting rate, or heart rate, whatever you call it, basically tells you how many calories you burn at rest. So if I do absolutely nothing, I measured it once in a type of little equipment, and by the numbers that gave me, I burn about 1,500 calories just doing nothing.
Now, I've also done it, and I burn 1,800 calories just doing absolutely nothing.
To maintain our bodies, I at least need to have 15. He at least needs to have 18. Now, for me to have 18, I'm no longer maintaining. I'm probably just going a little bit over at this point. So therefore, we both shouldn't be matching up calories because we do have two different sizes. But I really like to eat. I like to throw down. And one thing also with it is, I wanted to bring this up in the protein section, is the things you hear: body pound per gram of protein.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to run through that for people that may not understand that, so when it comes to pound per gram, what's your recommendation for it?
So usually if you're in like a strength training program, your regular strength training, at least 2 to 3 times a week, I'm pretty sure recommendations go from about 1.2 grams to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. So like someone that's, 225 pounds, you're technically 100 kilograms. So you'd have to have about 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram. So you have 100 kilograms. So you're going to have 160 grams of protein, basically max per day. Like that's what you should be aiming for. So, I mean, people get that very easily. I don't think it's an issue unless like we're talking about vegan diets and stuff like that and just all other possible things. There's so much, leeway one way, this way, but people, they figure it out. Some don't have it figured out.
But just know for the diet or the lifestyle, because we don't like the word diet around here, that you are on, even veganism to carnivore to keto, like everything is, there's enough protein everywhere for any diet, any lifestyle that you have. So if you're vegan, there's plenty of beans out in the world that can give you proteins, mushrooms, things like that, other options, tofu. If you're carnivore, obviously it's right there. If just strictly seafood diet, like diet lifestyle, come on, Diego, be better. Any lifestyle you choose, there's plenty of protein to be had. So just know that wherever direction you choose to go to, there's plenty of some options are harder. Some options are harder to find, but there is plenty of options for you. Just know that
there's always a way.
There's always a way. And now we're going to transition to one of the things most people, I think, are even more scared of when they hear carbs, is fats.
Yeah. This is probably the most uneducated, like macronutrient that's out there. Recently, it's gotten a lot more buzz just because of like a ketogenic diet. For those of you who don't know, that's basically a primarily heavily fat and protein, like fuel diet. So less carbs. And the whole like ideology behind that is basically going into ketosis. And ketosis is basically, instead of using carbs as like your energy source, you're using fat as your energy source. It's supposed to be a little bit long lasting, that's just kind of how fats work. They burn slower than carbs. But when we talk about fats, like there's a lot of different types. on the back of your nutrition label, you're going to see trans fats. Hopefully that says 0, because I'm pretty sure it's illegal to put it in any food because that is the worst fat for you to be able to ingest. But then you're going to see saturated, and then you're going to see unsaturated. So actually fairly recently, there's been a lot of research that's come out that says like that saturated is actually not as bad for you. I'd say it's kind of like a middle ground, like a medium difficulty or medium good for you. Like there's a limit on how much you should ingest within a day, but it's not going to kill you at the end of the day. But then at the end of the day, fats that are essential for a lot of like processes that happen within your body, like all the way down to the cellular level, unsaturated fats are the way to go. And there's monounsaturated fats, polyunsaturated fats, and these are the good fats that you hear about. So like these are going to be nuts, these are going to be avocados. These are the most like common ones that you kind of hear all over. This I think you get takes around maybe a max of about 30% of like your caloric intake that should be in a day. So if you do the math on like a 2,000 calorie diet, 30% of that should be about fats if you're following like the 2,000 calorie diet. That can jump very quickly, especially on foods, aka like meats and stuff that you buy that don't have a nutrition label on them if you're just going to, like the butcher at the back of the grocery store. So you have to be wary about that. With meat, you can buy leaner cut meat. There's ground beef. You can buy different, percentages of lean with fat. Most people buy, when they buy like ground beef to make burgers, they're buying 80-20 beef, 80% lean, 20% fat. That's a lot of fat. When you eat, 2 or 3 burgers, you're probably over your fat content for the day. So that kind of brings it to the whole thing of like the little switches that we can do.
Yeah.
Kind of transition. So like for fats, to reduce kind of the amount of fats that we're doing, just buy leaner meat.
So like 93%,
Yep. Like that's usually what I buy. I mean, I think if you kind of go over 93.7, I mean, there are extremes of like 99.1, 98.2. They tend to be more expensive just because it's kind of harder to achieve. And that kind of meat tends to get a little dry too. Not the best tasting thing in the world. 93.7, I think, is kind of like the sweet spot where you can kind of maintain and still be on like a steady course.
Or so beef, maybe turkey.
Turkey, yep. Turkey's a very lean type of meat. There's so many different types of meat that you could do. The ground way is usually going to be like the kind of the best way, in terms of like finding different percentages. If you kind of know your meats, like especially just if we're just talking about beef, different cuts of beef are going to be leaner than another. Like a strip steak is going to be a lot leaner than a ribeye. Like ribeye is known for having, a lot of fat content within it. So if you like to have a ribeye once a week, switch it to a New York strip and then maybe move on and kind of do it in phases and move to a leaner piece of meat.
And so you're eventually eating tofu, just
that could kind of go, the tofu. That's kind of like with the protein sources of kind of like a little switch in what you can do. But that, I think protein and fat kind of pair together with like the little switches that you can do.
And a lot of it is nowadays it's more accessible to do the switches.
Yeah.
I believe there's so many more options that are coming out daily and daily, like protein cookies, right? You never actually heard of them until a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's everywhere. I feel like every time I go to the little section in Walmart, Target, or whatever store you have near you, you can find like all these protein cookies, protein snacks, protein chocolate chips, protein everything. Like Quest is doing a bunch of stuff now. Mm-hmm. And so even though, yes, I say healthy, it's probably you'll be like, oh, that's not healthy. It's healthier. So some of it might still have sugar, some of it might still have that. But from your Snickers bar to my protein bar, probably my protein bar is going to be a tad bit better. That could make a big old difference if I do little switches like that.
It's a step in the right direction of like kind of where you want to go. And then kind of with carbs. So when we talk about carbs, there's kind of 2 different types of carbs that people really talk about. It's like high glycemic carbs and low glycemic carbs. And basically, when you talk about like a glycemic index of a carb, you're really talking about how your body reacts to it. So I'm sure everyone's had it before when you eat a big old plate of pasta after, you just feel like you feel awful, you feel sluggish, you want to take a nap and do all of it. Basically, that you probably had a high glycemic carb and your insulin just shot through the roof, and now all you want to do is kind of lay. So transferring to something that's a little bit more low glycemic is going to help you a lot. You're going to feel a lot more energetic. The energy actually lasts a little bit longer, so it doesn't burn off as quick. So a high glycemic carb is anything like sugar, simple carb that just breaks down extremely fast. Rice Krispie treat, regular just white plain bread, white pasta, white rice are usually going to do that to you. So switching to something, like brown rice is going to be a little bit more low glycemic. Buying sourdough bread over white bread. Sourdough bread actually has a lower glycemic index, so that's always, just a better option. Again, a little switch that will make a big difference in the long run. And then there's just whole grain stuff. That's it's better for you. You see it on the shelves next to the the white stuff. It's better for you.
It really is. And then we're not telling you also to change it all in one day. So these are just little steps like, hey, maybe tomorrow, just try one thing. Just try one thing. And then slowly that can build up a habit. And then once a habit builds up, it builds up a whole type of momentum base that you're going on the right direction. Next thing you know, you're an athlete and you look like us over here. Obviously, I'm not going to stand up, but, just take our word that we're two peak male performing athletes.
Yeah.
As long from here to there.
But at the end of it, it's like, I think now it's like a great time to be able to like make these switches. It is so much easier to find better food nowadays. Like there's so many more companies that are into the health and fitness thing that have just sprung up. I mean, I know Whole Foods is more expensive, but you've got your options. It's, where you can put your priorities. Do you want to put it kind of on your well-being and stuff? I like to spend the extra money and get, the better food for myself. Minus the Trader Joe's orange chicken. We're not going to talk about that again.
Right? And don't think also our diets are fantastic. I mean, we're here to be honest as well. So we do all these little changes and we do indulge. But we do make sure that we are responsible with our lifestyle. We're toned in the right direction. So yes, although this morning I did miss my bus because I did go buy a bag of hot Cheetos and that I can make it in time while eating it. It's Friday. I deserved it because basically throughout this week I was eating pretty well. I was eating good carbs, healthy fats, a good amount of protein, and basically I'll be right back on it again tomorrow. And but here and there, I will miss my bus stop to go get a snack because, again, I'm not going to stop myself from enjoying good foods as no one else should, but we should be pretty wary of how we're treating our day-to-day lives. So it's not going to be that hot Cheeto bag every single day, maybe once or every other week, things like that. So be responsible with your lifestyle because we do only get this body once. So we got to treat it with the most upper care because longevity is probably the biggest battle we have when it comes with nutrition. The eat better, live better, because I don't want more years, I want better years. So
yeah,
and that's how nutrition will help us. So macros are very important, especially when it comes to our lifestyle. Carbs, good fats, proteins. So hopefully here we broke them down pretty well. And again, we are not registered dietitians. This is just our kind of take from things we do in our daily lives within our field. So to break it down more, we do have a dietitian. So please feel free to follow us on our Kanima Be Well virtual platform. If you do want to get more in depth of your proteins, carbs, fats, and how your body can manage them a lot better. But for now, that is all the time we have. Thank you guys for tuning in so much. I'm Cafe. This is Leche. Christian Diego. Cafe and Con Leche in the morning. We shall see you on the next episode. Enjoy your day.
See you later.